Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and in today's video I am going to review all of my makes from February and March. So I feel really good about this video, mainly because some of these makes actually have their own videos, and if they don't have their own video yet, hopefully for a few of them they will be coming up soon. So that's really nice because I've always enjoyed when I watch other makers on YouTube and they're able to sort of point you in the direction of additional resources if you were curious and kind of digging in deep for more details about things that they've made. So I'm excited that I get to do that this time. I'm just going to begin with some of my February makes. So first up, we have this gorgeous heavy coatigan, as I like to call it, and it is warm. So this was made out of a beautiful, I think it's like a cotton fleece sort of fabric. It was the densest, thickest material I have ever worked with, and as you can see on the inside there, has that fleecy material. And then I used a cotton sateen sort of material for the lapels, for that lining, just because the fabric was so thick that trying to actually use it and double it for the facing would have been just too much material to work with. So I'm really happy that I had the foresight to do that, as well as in the pockets, which are also lined, and I had not expected that. So I was really happy that for that I used the cotton sateen as well. For this make I used S8742, and this is a simplicity pattern that I definitely believe that I'll try and make some more of, especially as we go back into the fall. I am going to try it out on a material that isn't as hefty as this one, and I hope that I get some results that I'm really happy with. And there was no issue in actually constructing it. It just was a really hard material to sort of maneuver. So I'd love to give it another chance so that I can have a full-on experience as intended without sort of it being so laborious because of the fabric. Now, another thing to note is that I made an alteration here in the back. It is supposed to have a center back seam line to give it just a bit of shaping. And unfortunately, when I was actually in the process of making this coatigan, one of the things that I noticed is that if I added a center back seam, I would have had to have about 4 different layers of fabric in this little central area to put the facing and the under collar and the back together. Maybe like 6 layers, like 6 pieces of fabric. And it was just going to be too much to handle. So I figured that actually the amount of curvature that you got in that center back seam wasn't that much, in my opinion. So I figured that I would be able to get away without having a center back seam at all. While it worked, the actual installing it and making it work, it worked. However, I do find that when I wear it, I am missing the opportunity to have some shaping in the back. I cannot wait to try and make this pattern again, and I'm hoping that it'll be something that I wear for years to come. Another thing that you might notice is that I still have to do the cuffs. The way that they want you to finish the cuff is sort of like doubling it and then folding it out. I've just been wearing it with the sleeves sort of cuffed under like this and showing the fleece until I figure out how I want to cuff it. So I cut a size small in this. The pattern S8742 has sizes extra small to extra large, with the European sizes from a 32 to a 50, and American sizes 6 through a 24. So that goes for a bust starting at 30.5 inches all the way to 46 inches. So not the most size inclusive thing, but it is very, very oversized. The second thing that I wanted to share with you was this fabulous dress. I picked up this fabric at G Street Fabrics, and I was so excited to use it. I also got this awesome lace detailing from there. If you watched my behind the scenes in February, like my sewing vlog for that month, you would have seen me making this as well as the coatigan that you just saw. And for this pattern, I use Simplicity 8834. And this is one of my Make 9s, as was the Coatigan. So I was really excited that I dug into my Make 9s. And I made a few modifications here. I, first of all, removed the center front seam. So I cut the front on the fold. And in order to do that, I shortened the tie, so you see it's just a little nub, and then I just added an extension with another piece of fabric. So I used the black challis fabric from my stash as well to sort of extend those ties to make it much longer. In the actual pattern, they sort of want you to tie this in the front, and that for me is really lackluster because every time I've done that, it just sort of, the gathering, the way that it pulls in the front, I don't like it as much. So what I prefer to do is actually have longer ties so that I can wrap it all the way around myself and either tie it in the back or bring it all the way back to the front and tie it there. I also wanted to test it out without a center front seam because I don't ever allow the little keyhole opening that they have in the pattern. I don't use that, so I wanted to see if I could just eliminate it altogether, and I could, so that was really nice. I did add a bit of elastic at the waist just to see if I could get a really nice fit on this garment so that I wasn't necessarily relying on the ties to pull it in. I could sort of have the fit already but have a bit of ease because it's elastic and can kind of stretch with me. When I was cutting out the pattern, I definitely underestimated how much fabric I needed and was only able to cut about a 3/4 length sleeve and wanted to extend it a little bit. I tried using the black challis again from the ties and sort of incorporating it at the sleeve and then adding a cuff by gathering it with elastic. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But then I remembered I had this gorgeous, gorgeous velvet lace fabric in my stash from a recent, back then at the time at least, a recent G Street fabric haul during their President's Day sale. So I went ahead and added it right here. And it's also featured on the very bottom as well. And it's just so lovely to wear. I love this dress. The collar, like putting the span in, gave me a bit of a hard time. It definitely gave me a bit of a hard time. But all in all, because I made it thicker, that's why. It's not meant to be this wide, but I had leftover strips of fabric. I cut them like bias binding, so I cut them on the bias and then attached them together. So there's a lot of just overlap. There's a lot of stuff happening at the collar, but I had to make it work with the fabric that I had left, and I'm really happy about this make. I could see myself wearing it for a while to come, and it was one of my Make 9. I have another way that I want to hack this, and I am thinking about using it in my April plans coming up, so stay tuned. But I want to see if I can make this like wrap front as a button up shirt with a collar. And I'm going to borrow the collar from the next pattern that I'm going to show you. So the other thing that I made in the month of March was this absolutely gorgeous button front dress. And this is none other than S9114, the dress version. And I'm so happy with it. So here is Mimi G's S9114. I had been working with this pattern quite a bit in January because I was fitting the trousers of this and adapting that as well. And I wanted to give the dress a go. This was very important to me because I'd been coveting this fabric for so long. It was going to be the fabric I was going to utilize in a slip dress, and then I changed my mind. And I'm so happy that I ended up making this instead because I've worn it tons. It is a very loud statement piece, so I don't wear it like back to back. But any opportunity I have, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna throw this on because it's just so easy to dress up or dress down. I love the collar detail, and this is a collar that does not have a stand, so it's just a single piece. And this was my first ever collar put into a garment, so it wasn't as hard or as challenging or as daunting as doing a collar with a collar stand, but it gives me that look and at least is building my confidence slowly so that I can tackle like a more structured collar in the future. But I absolutely love the button front placket. Gathering these tiers took forever. I went ahead and used my serger. I looked up on YouTube different methods for using the serger to gather fabric, and I used that method. and then just sort of worked that in and massaged it into place, and that was a lot easier for me. I French seamed everything. Everything is French seamed in here, and that makes me so happy. It's just looks so put together on the inside, and I'm so proud of this make. It is one of those that I put in my closet and I'm like, wow, you made that? And that's a good feeling when you even, you know, surprise yourself. I cut a size 10 in this, and I think usually for simplicity patterns I go with a size 12, but because of how oversized I knew this was going to be, and because I wanted to wear it more as a dress for day-to-day wear, not necessarily like an over jacket or anything like that, so I went ahead with the size 10, and it definitely fits beautifully. I think in the future, depending on the fabric, I might consider sizing up to a size 12 though, just for the bodice so it doesn't pull at the buttons. One of the other things that I want to mention about the buttons is that because I was using a button that has a shaft on it, I thought it was really important to make sure that I backed those buttons with really tiny buttons on the inside. So I did that all the way down the button placket. And it just means that these buttons are going nowhere. Like, they hold a ton of weight. And I was just so proud that I considered that. I remember seeing this sort of detail on heavier items like coats and jackets. And that makes sense because often those are the garments that would have the buttons with a shank on it. And when I was making this, I did the first one. I installed the first button, and I did not use that method, and I just saw how it was eating into the fabric. Like, I felt really nervous that this was somehow going to rip out, but there's so much added stability when you have the button backing it. So if you've ever considered that or used buttons that aren't just flat, that would be my recommendation to you, is to probably consider doing that. Really excited about this make. Could see so many more S9 114s in my future, for sure, like for sure. And in the month of February, I made a lot of little matching sets for my daughter, so I'll go ahead and bring those out as well. So I started making my daughter some things back in January. It was just really cold, and I had a ton of fabric that had her name written all over it. Like, I knew that that's what I got those fabrics for, and before the cold weather was gone, I was like, I need to get to it. So when I didn't know what to sew, or my sojo was kind of low, or I was afraid to tackle some of my February makes or didn't have as much time, I would just dig into sewing her garments because they were so gratifying and quick. So the pattern that I used the most is this thrifted pattern that I have, which is Simplicity 4924, and I love it. I will say this, I definitely modified the pants. These are really loose, and I want hers a bit more fitted just because I don't want there to be a ton of draft sort of going up the pant leg. So I made them a little bit more fitted, and my kiddos are quite slender. They're slim, so I didn't want it to be as wide as the pants were. So I slimmed those down, and then I made a slight modification to the top as well. They want you to have sort of like a shoulder closure on one of the sides, so they cut out like these additional pieces, and you have to sort of put snaps in them. And I was like, this is a kid's garment made out of knit material. I'm not doing that. I just, no. So I went ahead and sort of modified it and cut that out of it. So I just have the front and the back piece and the binding, which I often just measure it depending on the amount of stretch of that particular fabric that I'm using. So I made this set out of this, it's like a cashmere, faux cashmere fabric from Joann's that I got in the remnant section. And I just made her this little set with it. It's so cute. So this is the top. It has sort of like a mock neckline that comes up a little bit. As you can see, it's a little bit wide. Okay, it wasn't my best work, but it's fine. It does a little blues on sleeve action that then gets put into a cuff. She's so fashionable. It has a high-low hemline, you know, cover up the bootay, and yeah, her little pants to go with it. So it's just the cutest little thing. Most of these sets look like that. Okay, I have this sort of cotton. It's a pop fabric from Joann's as well that I picked up in their clearance section. Similar thing, made her the matching set, which I absolutely love seeing little kiddos in matching sets, so I'm glad that I was able to make that for her. These just all came out of the laundry, by the way, so I'm just making a mess here. But yeah, and then this tie-dye that I picked up at G Street Fabric in their $2.97 section. So it has this like awesome coloring. So then I did the same color blocking on the pant, which I think is really cool. So it has like the majority red and then this splash of blue to kind of coordinate with the colors of the sweatshirt. So I'm really excited about that. And I made these, again, just pants, and I used the faux cashmere remnants to serve as the waistband. So this doesn't have elastic in it at all. And this is just fleece from the clearance section at Joann's as well. And the rest of the pants, however, do have elastic in the waistbands. So then we enter into the month of March, and I wanted to begin by sharing this lovely make, and I'm really proud of it. So come on up closer. So this is Simplicity 8982, and this has really become like a firm favorite of mine. I'm actually wearing an 8982 and they look completely different. I have not made the official version of this dress, not once. I think both times I've made it, I've hacked it and sort of made it my own, but it is one of my favorites because it is so darn hackable. Okay, there's so many ways that you can turn this pattern into the garment of your dreams, and I for one love the possibilities of that. So with this particular make, I made the dress version, so view A, but I borrowed the sleeves from view C. So this is sort of a mashup of that. In addition to that, I went ahead and added some detailings as far as the curves that you see in the front and then the dip in the back. So I'm really proud of that. I also went ahead and added some detailings around the neckline as well as on the sleeve cuff. So I just love all the details that I put in here. You can't see this at the bottom, but hopefully I can cut to it. And at the bottom, I added this rectangular fabric after cutting into the garment at a V. It's just beautiful, the drape that it gives. I was inspired by these dresses from the brand Scoop that I believe are sold at Walmart. And some of the fashionistas that I follow on YouTube were just raving about this dress. So it's like dresses and then they have this skirt, but that sort of V with the almost handkerchief-like addition to it is a feature that I saw on one of those dresses that I absolutely loved and wanted to give it a try. And a video for the making of this, as much as I recorded at least, will be coming to you this month. So I hope that you stay tuned on it and are excited about that. But it's just gorgeous. I have nothing else to say about it. This is a cotton jersey fabric. These are both cotton jersey fabrics that I thrifted last year. So it was really nice to get to put them to good use. So for the dress version, for both of the dresses that I made, I start off with a size 10 in the body and then sort of grade out to either a 12 or a 14 in the hips, depending on the amount of stretch that's in the fabric that I'm using at the time. But I did find that once I made this dress, actually, I had to go back in and take in quite a bit of fabric after like around the bust and definitely around the hips, and then sort of grade back out. So probably could have cut a size 8. I certainly had to sort of take it in, which then ruined my placement. So I was really thrilled that I had sort of gotten the curves to sort of meet so beautifully in the center. And then when I had to go back in because I realized the dress was way too large on me, I lost all of that beauty. So my arms are down and you can't tell when it's down, but I know it's there. I forget about it most times, but that hurt me a little bit because I worked so hard to make sure that they would kiss, you know, they would just meet. It's beautiful. This isn't one of my make 9s, but it's definitely one of the patterns that I think will become one of my tried and trues, and that is also something that I was on the lookout for this year. So it's making its way up the list, and I don't see myself putting it out of the sewing space anytime soon, because anytime I need something made out of a knit, even when I see other patterns that kind of come out, I'm like, oh, I can kind of just make the 8982 into that. So I really, really do appreciate just how much of a workhorse this has been in my stash. Next up is the beautiful So Yellow for Endo dress, which there's an entire video for you on this channel all about the making of this. So I won't go into a ton of details, only to say, I loved 8875, but like this took it to new levels. the ability to have this waist seam, and now I can put any sort of skirt at the bottom of this. Game changer. Game changer. Love it. I cut a size 12. That was the original dress that I ever made of this was a size 12. Then I graded down to a size 10 in the second dress I made. Realized I didn't need to do that. So I went back to my old faithful size 12, and I love it. I, in the future, would raise this waistline maybe by 5/8 of an inch. On the pattern piece, I marked out where the waistline was, straightened that out, and then made a line 5/8 of an inch below that, and that's where I cut, just to include that seam allowance. But honestly, after I made this, it starts to curve outwards, and it really should sit at your smallest point. So I'm going to just cut along the waistline itself, and that 5/8 of an inch. I think my torso just doesn't really need that additional space. I think I'm gonna be fine. So that's what I would do moving forward, but honestly, that's like the only change I would make, and I absolutely see myself making more of these. There's something about this neckline that is just so darn cute, makes me feel amazing every single time I wear it, and I want more dresses like this. Absolutely. And I almost got it done in a day. Like, it was a weekend, but in a day, which blew my mind, and it's fully lined. It's like, how did I do that? So if I could do that with a fully lined something with a double circle skirt, I'm thinking the next time I make this, if I just do like a gathered skirt with the waistline seam, I could possibly do it in a day. What? I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. Next up, we have the petal skirt of my dreams. It is turned inside out. I just hang it inside out because I don't want the petals to, I don't know, do weird stuff. So I just like them to be protected. But this is the petal skirt. I did it! It makes me really happy. This is made out of curtains from the thrift store. I think in total I used 4 curtains for the final make. So I used a curtain each for the half circle skirts that are at the bottom, and those are lovely, are French seamed up the back. Then I used another panel piece to do the 2 larger flounces, and then I used a 1 panel piece to do the 3 top petals, and it's glorious. If you watch the making video, you know that I have this little boo-boo right here in the back. Don't know how that happened. Really upset about it. But since I've worn it, it does start to fray. So I am going to figure out something. I might use fray check or see what I can do just to sort of like stop that from happening. But at the end of the day, it is not going to steal the shine and all the hard work that went into making this lovely thing. I feel like it's swishy enough. Honestly, like, would you notice that from afar? I don't know. I most likely would wear something that I could camouflage that in a way. I put the zipper in the back, and in order to do that, I had to go ahead and cut into and stitch down the top 2 petal pieces so that I could get to the underskirts back there. So that's how I finished it, and you can see where the zipper kind of ends there. And that is just how I get in and out of it. But as far as constructing it, dreaming it up, and sort of figuring out all the engineering that needed to go behind it to actually make it happen, I'm so proud of this make. And yeah, it's made out of curtains, so it's like a concept sort of tester. Maybe one day I'll make it out of silk. I just have to tally up how many yards of fabric that was, because this is a fabric hungry beast for sure. But it was so worth it. And here is my lovely, lovely red lace top. So you've seen this before if you've been here all along in the red collection back in April 2021 when I did that video. And then as we moved on, I pulled it out this year and said, this is a UFO. I'm going to share it with you all, and I'm committing myself to doing it. And boy, oh boy, did we do it. It is a cropped, lovely blouse, and it is made using this Butterick pattern B6664. Which it's grown on me. Now that I have the higher neckline and the swing top, it doesn't have any darts in the bust of this top. It sort of just swings off of you. So I really like that. It made it super easy to make, especially out of a silk fabric. And I have some silks in my stash that I don't have a lot of, but after making this, I do think that maybe I can squeeze a top like this out of it. And I've been looking for something that would be sort of the equivalent of a camisole for me, something that had a higher neckline that's really free and loosey-goosey that I can make with some of my nicer fabrics. I'm really proud of this make. If I were to make this again, I would try and find a way that I could sew it so that I don't have to add the cap sleeve to the sleeve. So I would figure that out, because I think that would also make it make it more user-friendly for me in the future as I think about making something with that pattern again. I did the same sort of hack or, you know, tip with the button that I used here. It's this beautiful rose button. It does have like a shank, and I went ahead and added a small button on the inside just to hold that in place. Because this is silk and lace, I didn't want the thread to be you know, like pulling through those really thin layers. So I think this just helps to protect it and add a bit more integrity and a bit more strength to that and make it long lasting. Everything in this make is also French seamed. I was just a French seaming queen. I did put the silk in the wrong way around, which is why I ended up having to crop it up even more and lifting that hemline, but it is what it is. You can't win them all, okay? That was a little boo-boo on my part. Because I was doing French seams, I did the French seams correctly, but in doing so, then I ended up with the wrong sides facing, which is usually what you want, right? So I have the wrong sides facing, but I kind of wanted the right side and the right sides. No, it would have been the right side and then it would have been the wrong side with the right side of the silk underneath it. Should have been facing. But I didn't work that out in my mind beforehand, so it's fine. The final thing that I made in March is this awesome top. So in my plans for March, there is this blouse that I saw, a top that I saw on Pinterest that's striped, and it's just a rectangle of fabric. And I was convinced, I was like, I'm going to need to make this, create a video and post it as my So Frugal 22 make, because I just feel like more people would want something this easy breezy and easy to make. So I ended up making this as a toile version. This is a knit, and the garment that I was looking at was absolutely made out of woven cotton. However, this is just a rectangle. So I was like, would it really matter? I had this fabric in my stash and have been sort of confused as to what to make with it, and it seemed like a really great fit, because while it's not actually stripes, the sort of detailing in the fabric, the texture definitely makes it an interesting one, and I wanted to use it like this. So here is the top. This is what it looks like. It's really, really boxy, just a boxy fit. As you can see, now I'm getting a little bit of the waviness because I didn't change like my needle or anything to a jersey needle. I just sort of sewed it in place, and maybe the tensions and the way that it was pulling the fabric puckered it a little bit, so I get that wave. And also, I did my French seams. I was not paying attention. I did my French seams the wrong way around, so it's facing on the outside. I was thinking, like, will I go through and cut it out or like unpick it? And I said no. It's just going to be a design feature. I do think, however, that this top will go to my younger sister. I just need to finish up some things, but I made the neck hole opening way too large. So for me, this would not be a comfortable fit at all. So I would, in the future make that I do, sort of make that a bit more closed up. I didn't use a pattern for this, but on that website for the top that I was inspired by, they gave the dimensions of the entire garment. Now that did not fit with what I would want as far as like how cropped it was and how open the neckline was or the arm, etc. But I was able to use that to just give myself an idea of how that garment was constructed, so that I could make my own. I again have already identified some of the changes that I would make for a future make, but this was really nice to just test out the concept. Super nice zero waste, you know, sort of pattern, which is awesome. And I cannot wait to hopefully share that on the channel with you soon, the making of the final version that I do. But that was the final thing that I made in the month of March, to my knowledge, I think. Right? Yeah. I did work on the jumpsuit from my Make 9, which is Simplicity 6268, out of the awesome cerulean blue Ponte knit. I love that fabric so much. But it will be going to my sister. She came on, she tried it on. I don't know where it is in this very moment. I cannot find it. But I am going to finish it up and gift it to her. So hopefully I can enter that in my selfless. So I have some other ideas of things that she will be gifted. So hopefully she enjoys this top as well as this beautiful jumpsuit when it is complete. I know, we were also thinking about doing like the red jumpsuit. Like I had all the plans. How was I going to finish that? Similar to this month where I'm realizing that I have a conference. I think this Saturday I will have to leave. This upcoming Saturday. Ooh. You know, the dates just creep up on me. Like, where did that come from? Why? Why is that already here? So with that, there are some things that I was hoping to get made up for that conference, but now I'm like, yowzers, that's this weekend. Haha, haven't started anything, but I'll let you know in my April sewing plans video what it is that I'm hoping to accomplish this month, and I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, folks, stay creative. Bye-bye.